Hi everyone, welcome back to Aspergers from the Inside. You're here with Paul. Today's Patron's Choice video topic is how to explain autism to your friends and family. This is the kind of question that we've all had to grapple with at some stage. So today I'm going to be sharing with you my 4 steps of how to step someone through the process of actually getting a sense and an understanding of what autism is. I'll also be sharing some ways we can use the 4 steps to make both short and long responses depending on the situation. And finally, at the end of the video, I'll share my top tip for what to do when you find yourself in this situation that kind of bypasses a lot of the problems that we have with this question. So another thing that helps when trying to explain what autism is to explain what autism isn't. A big thing that autism isn't is it's not a stereotype. It's not a type of person at all. In fact, autism kind of means that you don't really fit into any box. Essentially, being autistic means it's difficult to be normal. In fact, we used to define success, right, for an autistic child as becoming indistinguishable from their peers, right? So we've come a long way since those days, but it kind of gives you a sense of what we're dealing with. So that's what the 4 steps are going to do today. Help us explain what is this difference that we call autism. Essentially what we're trying to do is build some empathy so that the other person gets like an understanding of what autism is. When I was younger, I had autism explained to me as an autistic child is someone who will turn the truck over and just spin the wheels. I'm like, well, that doesn't really help me understand what autism is. It gives me no empathy, it gives me no understanding, and it leaves me thinking, well, that kid's a bit weird. I wonder why, what's wrong with that kid, right? Those kind of responses. So to avoid those kind of reactions from another person, we need to build a connection so that they can see that autistic behavior is essentially human behavior and it's something that they can relate to and that they can understand. Okay, so step number 1. Talk about difference and diversity. Every human being is different. Some people are tall, some people are short, brown eyes, blue eyes. We're all different in lots and lots of different ways. We know intuitively that every human being is unique. Autism is a type of difference that is naturally occurring as part of this kind of natural diversity and human uniqueness. And part of this means it's not a disease, it can't be cured, it's always existed. Right? So it's just that now we're noticing it more and more and more. So it's a pretty straightforward concept. People understand what difference and diversity is, and they can kind of see that some people are even more different, and that's sort of getting people to think about the right kind of things. Step number 2 is to talk about preferences and sensitivities. So people have different tastes in food, right? People have different tastes in music. People have different interests. Again, we are relating this to common everyday experiences that the person's going to know. The reason that a person might have a particular taste or a particular interest is going to be to do with what feels good to them, what is comfortable and what's uncomfortable. Autistic people are likely to have a sensory profile that includes some things that are well outside the normal range, whether that's being really sensitive to some things or really insensitive and having a difficulty picking up other things. And this has a huge impact on what we like to do. I am not going to like shopping if I can't stand shopping centers because they have really bright lights and annoying beeping noises, right? Talking about preferences and sensitivities allows people to understand that we all have these things, and when you're on the autism spectrum, these preferences are likely to be well outside the normal range on at least a few things. Okay, so once we've done those 2 things, step 3 is to talk about unique abilities and inabilities. There are some things that I'm going to be good at and that I'm going to be able to do, and there are going to be some things that I'm not so good at and will have trouble doing, right? I can't run a marathon, and some people find that easy. I find that particularly difficult. So again, we want to normalize this a little bit so that the other person can personally relate to the phenomenon of being naturally good at something and finding other things just naturally really challenging. Finally, though, we want to bring all these things together and talk about social disability. So the social model of disability is the idea that the world is designed literally designed, because we design it, for a certain type of person. And if you fall outside that range, you have a disability, right? The world is designed for people who can walk, for the most part. Therefore, if you're in a wheelchair, you need special accommodations like a ramp to get up the stairs, because originally we just had stairs because we assumed that everyone could walk. Now we are realizing that people have a variety of abilities and inabilities, and we are trying to develop and design a more inclusive world. And when we do that, we allow people who would otherwise have a disability to participate normally in society. Society is not typically designed to meet my personal needs. Maybe it's too loud, maybe it's too noisy, maybe they're both the same thing and I'm just repeating myself. Alternatively, there are some skills that I might not have, for example, small talk, and because I don't have the small talk ability, it might be difficult to get a job or to make friends or to participate in society in a way. So by explaining this idea of social disability, it shows how being different in and of itself makes it hard to be normal, makes participation in the social world increasingly difficult. Okay, so we've gone through those 4 things, and you can imagine that it might be good to go through them in more detail or less detail depending on the situation. A good thing to note here is that not everyone is going to be open to trying to understand these things. Not everyone is going to have the time, not everyone is going to have the inclination. Some people have an idea in their head and they're happy with their idea and they're not really open to listening to other ideas. In that situation, it does not help to try and repeat yourself over and over again if the other person is not understanding and or not listening. Instead, you can say it once as clearly as possible, and then if they're not listening, well, you've done your best. So with time as a limiting factor, for example, how might we go through these 4 steps in one succinct little statement? So I might say something like, everyone is different, right? We like certain things, we're good at certain things. People on the autism spectrum tend to be really good at some things, but often struggle with other things that might be in daily life that most people take for granted. So the net result is it's really hard to fit in anywhere. It's hard to be normal, hard to make friends, hard to find a job, and all of those things that we kind of take for granted in society. The good news is that when we're in a supportive environment that actually plays to our strengths, we can do really well. Okay, so that was an example of trying to use the 4 steps as concisely as possible. It's still not easy, is it? So my number 1 tip for how to get around such a challenging question is to not try and answer this question. Don't try and explain autism as some kind of abstract concept. Don't even use the word autism if it's not helpful in the situation, if the other person is not even going to understand what you mean by autism. Instead, what we can use is a specific example related to your situation. I might say something at work like, I need to see it written down so that I can remember. What we're trying to do, remember, is to make this explanation relatable so that the other person can understand what's actually going on and feel like they understand the person and the experience. So as many specific examples as you've got really help build that understanding and empathy. One that I use all the time, for example, is, you know how you don't like people talking to you before you've had your coffee in the morning? Well, that's how I feel at the end of the day when I'm really tired. All of a sudden, the person has a personal experience that they can relate to and help them to understand the situation. Hopefully that's been helpful. We've gone through the 4 points of talk about diversity and difference, preferences and sensitivities, abilities and disabilities and a diverse range of strengths, and then finally mentioning social disability and the concept that being different in and of itself makes it hard to fit in a world that is designed for normal people. Falling outside that can make certain things challenging. So a big thank you to everyone in our Patreon family for voting for this topic this month. If you'd like to have your say in next month's Patron's Choice video, you can become a cup of coffee supporter of this channel for less than $1 a week. So I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I'll see you again another time. Bye.